Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media DemoCast. On today's event, we're excited to be featuring VMware NSX. So before we jump into the demo, before we see it in action, there's a few things you need to know about the DemoCast. This is a new regular series of events where you'll learn about one product, one technology by seeing it in action and do it in all under 30 minutes, maybe 45, we'll see. But in a short period of time. The point here is to see the product, get some hands-on as much as you can via a webinar, and get your questions answered. We want to make this very educational, so use the Q&A box, ask your questions. We've got VMware experts, big-time networking experts on the event here to answer all those questions. So thanks so much for joining us today. The Twitter hashtag for this event is, you guessed it, hashtag DemoCast. My name is David M. Davis from Actual Tech Media. You can follow me on Twitter. And the event is presented to you by Actual Tech Media. So I'm excited to be joined by Mr. Christopher Campbell. He's the Director of Solutions Product Marketing at VMware, extremely knowledgeable on the VMware NSX solution and how it's transforming security in enterprise data centers. And then Mr. Neil Moore, he's a Staff Solutions Architect and one of the only 2 8-time CCIEs in the world, now working for VMware. And an expert, again, in NSX. And Neil is going to give us a really cool demo. So I'm excited to be joined by these 2 experts today. And without further delay, let's jump into what NSX is. And I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Christopher Campbell. Chris, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being on the DemoCast. So I'm going to change presenter over to you. And if you don't mind just sharing your slide deck there with us.
Yes, I will go ahead and do that.
All right,
hopefully
awesome.
Everyone can see my screen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, let me reintroduce myself. Christopher Campbell, Director of Solutions Product Marketing at VMware. Don't let the marketing fool you. As mentioned, man, I do get a little technical to be dangerous. In fact, I used to be a tech support guy and engineer in my old life. So I'm actually going to take a little quick different tact here. And before we jump into NSX and how it really works throughout our portfolio, I want to give you a picture of the old world. And so when you think of security, this is how most people architect for it. And this is why NSX is so revolutionary. Most people expect it to be, in 10, 15 years ago, you were sitting in an office connected to an Ethernet cable that was talking to some resource that was probably in that building. Now, the world has changed. This is what the new world actually looks like. You have so many different devices, so many different endpoints, IoT devices, and they're connecting from not only inside the office, but all over the office, over any type of network. They're connecting to a lot of different type of applications, whether it's mobile, web, SaaS, Windows applications, and these apps aren't monolithic anymore. These applications could be utilizing services from many different resources, whether it's public clouds, private clouds, or even hybrid clouds. So as you can see, that old perimeter-based way of doing networking and security, it has to change. This new digital enterprise, this new digital world is forcing us to actually move there. If you look at how you secure interactions between the application all the way down to the data, that surface area is growing, and you now need to have security everywhere. You really need to move security as close to that resource as possible. And think about that interaction: user, endpoint, application, network, on-premise or cloud resource, and data. And, that footprint is a very large footprint at this point. So if you think about how IT security should work, this is what it should look like. You probably have some federated identity that you're utilizing to log on to application, probably helping you do some conditional access to determine, if you're healthy, the device is healthy. Connecting from an endpoint, and maybe you're doing some data loss protection for scanning for malwares, any zero-day threats that you may have in your environment. Utilizing a per-app VPN, a micro VPN, some call it, using intelligent networking, scanning that network security from the device. creating basically a limited cyber attack footprint, probably doing some threat analytics on the way. Then you probably want something, maybe auditing that network and data center traffic, making sure it's healthy, all the way to sandboxing that resource now you have in the data center. In addition to, making sure you want to secure that operating system, that data at rest, and other things such as self-encrypting that data, making sure you analyze the environment for anomalies. And you kind of want the same security policies, both in the public cloud, in the private cloud, in the hybrid cloud. And you want to make sure all of that is healthy. Where this is how NSX plays a key part. If you look at our entire product portfolio here at VMware, NSX is really instrumental from the end user computing standpoint all the way inside the data center. And as you can see, NSX actually integrates with our AirWatch portfolio, with our Horizon portfolio, creating that secure connection from end user computing all the way to doing micro segmentation with its integration with vSphere, including some really cool stuff that we're working on with regards to detecting anomalies in the environment. Stay tuned for more news from that at VMworld. All the way down to, the ability to create these same policies as any cloud. So when we talk about cross-cloud architecture, NSX is actually one of the glues of that. The same workflows, the same security that you architect on premise is the same policies and architecture you're going to use in, when you move these workloads to Amazon Web Services or Azure, to our VMware cloud partners. So that is how NSX has actually been a very instrumental part and integrated part of the entire security solution here at VMware. But you know what? Enough of the marketing guy talking. You guys want to see how some of this stuff actually works. So with that said, I'll actually turn you over to the real security expert. Are you ready?
We are ready. I'm ready. So I'm going to change control over to Mr. Neil Moore, and he's got a really cool demo here to show us.
All right. Let's see. Is the screen building on your side?
Yeah, good to go. We could definitely see you.
All right. So just I'm kind of a visual kind of guy. So what I'm going to do in this demo is I've got two phones. One phone's going to call another, and then from there, Dave and I are going to walk through how NSX behind the scenes, kind of how it's all mapped. Just to one of the differences is I'm part of what's called the network function virtualization team here at VMware, and we use quite a bit of NSX to help virtualize the network functions. In this one, what's different than normal enterprise SIP, because if we've got some folks that are noticing on the from my SIP call is like, hey Neil, if you make a SIP call normally from one phone to another, well, those will just make a connection between each other and never really need to go through the NSX infrastructure. Well, that's true for like Call Manager and some of the other ones where it's more of an all-in-one. But from the telco side, you're because you could be connecting to different cell towers or different connections, there's actually quite a few services that are running. So just to help you to visualize this, when you're making a telephone call, it's the one SIP phone is registered to what's called a session border router, and that then brings you into the rest of the services where it's being termed now as like microservices, but from the telco side, there could be 20 or 30 different distinct services that help you to get your phone call through. So anyways, I'll start this off, and since I own the demo, I get to pick my my own phone number. So I'll just start by making the call.
I love the phone number, Neil. I was going to
Yeah.
guess that actually.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, the one for the Clash too. I'm terribly unoriginal when it comes to the for phone numbers. But what we've got here is as you right here where it has this is from my hotel room. This gives us the the quality of the connection, and then this is the one that's back at the lab. So this is coming through, making the connection. Now, keeping this in mind, here, I'll go ahead and hang up now. I'm going to transition over to the NSX side, and I'll start to walk you through the different components that make up this. So here we go. The We'll kind of work this one backwards. If we have time, I'll show you the installation at the end and the things that you have to do to get NSX up and running in your environment. But as with traditional switching, you have what's called a layer 2 network, which is a broadcast domain. So it's like you're on one subnet and you have multiple hosts on there. You have that as your subnet. In the way the NSX works, you don't have to, you're not actually tied to IP addresses, you're actually tied to like an object. So as you can see here, I've got a few networks. So these are the ones down towards the bottom are actually another product that we have. It's called VMware Integrated OpenStack. That's why they're using GUIDs, but we're going to focus up here on the top here where these virtual wire 1 through 4. So we have like the outside network, and one of the parts that really help from a vSphere admin is that you can ask for like a pool of IP addresses from your network admin, like a large set, and then you can start to divvy them up. So these names that I have on here, like this being a /24, is purely arbitrary in its name. Now, once I double clicked on it here, you can see that which hosts and which virtual machines it's actually tied to. So these are some of the things that are part of the Metaswitch Clearwater suite that I was showing to make the demo. And it's coming in and telling me, okay, these are the ones that are on there for that. So let me go back over here real quick. And just to help you build that, so this one's got quite a few networks on it. There's no VLANs involved in this. It's purely logical. And what it allows you to do, because we're using what's a technology called VXLAN, that allows us to take that layer 2 network and logically stretch it across the networks. For being a vSphere admin, it would be like making a virtual distributed switch that was actually accessible with no VLAN settings all the way across all of the machines in the same cluster. Is a good way to think of that. Now, as with normal routing, that would be the next one. You have your layer 2, and you're like, hey, I need a default gateway of some kind in order to get out. Well, for us, it's under the NSX edges section, and I've got a couple down here. And this is a hands-on lab that I'm working on. This is the behind the scenes, so to speak, on actually configuring it. But this is the two. So we have two of them. We have one that's called an edge router, and the easiest way to think of this one is this is your gateway from the logical world into the physical world. So I'll go ahead and drill into that one for a second.
So this is how devices out in the physical network access the tunnels, the VXLAN tunnels in the virtual infrastructure. Am I understanding it right?
Close. This is when you're in the traditional networking, you would have a one router to another router, and that's the physical demarc where things go from one type to another type. What this is it's able to straddle both worlds. So, and I'll click on the interfaces here. In its interfaces, it has one interface right here, this, as we hit earlier, this is a purely logical one. This one here is an uplink right here. This is the one taking me to the physical world. So like for our traditional vSphere, this would be like uplink 1 and uplink 2 would be tied to this one. This is where you can actually trace it to physical NICs that are going to take you out of the environment. That helps out
Got it.
there.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, and then just to, we have a ton of different routing things that you can do with this. In this one, I wanted to simplify it and just show that these are the networks that I'm advertising, or that are my static routes that are going into, and this next hop here is going to the distributed router, and this router is actually part of the kernel on all of the ESX hosts. So this next hop here is purely virtual at that point, and that's and you don't have to run the different routing protocols to kick the tires, so to speak, and test this out. You can ask your network admin to give you a pool of address, similar to like how you would get a pool for your storage. It would be the same thing for this, to ask for a pool, and then from there you could divvy these out. I made them kind of large because in the lab here I build and destroy quite a few machines at a time, but I could make these smaller if I needed to set up different networks. One of the really parts to drive home on this is that once I have that pool of IP addresses, I'm going to go back and I'll go down to the distributed router, because that would be the next hop in this picture here, is that these networks, or sorry, I'm on the wrong one. This is actually DHCP relays here. So that means that I'm doing for my IP addresses, I'm actually using a centralized DHCP server for my IP. So things that you had on the on your network, they're still all very valid. Now that I'm here, this is how many NICs I have hanging off of this distributed router. And in the demo, when I was making the phone call, there could be 2, 3, 4 virtual machines, and they could be spread across 3 different machines. Every one of their default gateways will be local to the machine. So if I use like affinity rules from vSphere, I could localize some of the features so that they don't actually have to physically ever leave the box. The distributed router will keep the traffic, even though it's on a separate VLAN or a separate VXLAN, it'll keep it local. So say somebody gave you a pool of addresses. This is literally how fast it is to set up, right? So, I'm being all impressive and I'm going to make David his own subnet, right? So I just give it a name. I attach it to a logical switch, and these are the switches that are in our environment. So we have a couple of them. We have the distributed port group logical switch. So I'm just gonna, just for the sake of it, I'm just gonna attach it to a logical switch. Now this switch is part of my VMware integrated OpenStack, so it's gonna, that's why it has that really long GUID. But I can come in and put like an IP address on it, and because I was allocated a pool, this IP can come in and it's just dynamically added. I just remove that one because this particular area, I only have what's called a /22. So these are the only VLANs or the only IP address ranges that can come in here. So I wouldn't be able to ping it or anything like that to show you. But just to highlight these default gateways, where in your older way of thinking, this would have been your firewall or your router or something like that. This is actually on every single one of the hosts. So I'm going to jump over a little bit, and I was just going to show you the firewall rules. And there's 2 sets to this. I've got from one of the parts that I found that's kind of takes a little getting used to on the thought process is that you're tied to IP addresses and MAC addresses as far as what you're used to or using to make changes and to do your firewall rules. Well, with NSX, we use objects. So we're actually able to create an object, and I'll create one here real quick. As I said, total lack of imagination there on my names. And
so Neil, I just want to confirm something with you at this point. So, I mean, I'm feeling pretty comfortable because I can see you're in the vSphere client. So if you're a vSphere admin like me watching this, you're thinking, okay, vSphere client, I'm comfortable, I got this. But over on the left, there's a lot of cool networking stuff going on here in the vSphere client. So we've got switches. So we're used to having switches, right? Standard switches and distributed switches. But this is like distributed switches taken to a whole nother level. And then you've got routers, firewalls, load balancers. Am I kind of understanding that right? All this is all virtual, but it's all managed through the vSphere client with VMware NSX.
Yes, yes, exactly, Dave. And one of the things that's the thing is that this is like not the first time this has kind of happened. And what I mean by that is there was a time when virtualization didn't exist, and we were bringing the concepts of vCPUs and memory and reservations and all of these things were being brought together by vSphere. And in a sense, what we're doing here is we're bringing the functions that are being done by switches and routers and firewalls and load balancers, we're bringing those in and giving you software access to them.
So it's like the whole physical network just virtualized in the virtual infrastructure. Now, can this, I mean, obviously this helps network admins, but can it help vSphere admins as well?
Yes, yes. Oh, one of the things that makes it like to me 100 times more efficient than doing it with the traditional physical only networks is that in vSphere we have access to all of the objects for our machines. So for example, when I created this little test rule here, right now it's it's pretty open. So we have these are the kind of things that we as vSphere admins have access to limit or allow on the network. So we have the ability to say, okay, a particular virtual machine, instead of its IP address, even if its IP changes like 100 times, if we have this object tied to the virtual machine name itself, it can switch all at once, and it still has the same sets of rules. The other one is that rather than having a separate cluster with firewall rules on the north side, we can go and say, for example, our management cluster has a different set of base rules to it than the edge. And the edge, again, is the one that talks to the physical world. And the compute is where where you dedicate lots of resources to doing compute and resources and stuff like that. But these are rather than just IP and MAC address, those logical switches that I was showing you just a little bit ago, we can use those to be part of the access list. And if somebody is on this, and I'll just pick one at random here. If say somebody is physically or attaches themselves to that, no matter what, that we can set the rules that they have that they're allowed to do. So we can give them AD control or access to AD and those kind of things, and then it doesn't matter what they do for you. One of the other ones that I use quite a bit, and I'll get over to that one, is a little farther down here. I use the security groups, and what the security groups do is you're able to create a security group, and then I can put a tag on it. So even if it's in the same VLAN or VXLAN or on the same layer 2 subnet, I can go and add, I put a tag on them, and these machines actually become part of a tag that I then put a rule onto. So like here I have this set to for Clearwater for management. Then I can say the destination is any and then allow it or deny it. Then everything's set. So, you know, okay, so I want to add or subtract somebody later. Well, that's where it starts to get, you know, really interesting. And I'll jump down here real quick to the over to the manager, and there's also access control that's involved in this too. So we can set up that, say, network centric people are all that are allowed to get into these areas. So, you know, there's things like that we can pull from the vSphere, like the single sign on and all of that good stuff to take care of that. So rather than me like, oh, you know, hey, I can't remember what the IP address is for a particular host, or it's in DHCP, you know, that's where it, you know, really gets interesting in that, you know, it can move around, which makes it really tough. Let me go ahead and cancel that. It makes it really tough to go and set things up. We can just go, make sure I got the right one. There we go. Oh, hit cancel on that one. Let's create a new one for you guys. It's quicker. Okay, so we have the tag set up.
So I can create firewall rules and all sorts of security policies, and I can apply those on a per virtual machine basis, or, you know, maybe even to higher levels like VApp basis, a VApp basis. So it's kind of like storage, like policy-based management for storage. Now it's a policy-based management for networking as well. Is that true?
Exactly. And here I was one tab off when I was showing it to you, but let me get over there. See, I have this object set up here with this object. This right here, we have the security group to the object, and then once I add that object to the actual host, they then start picking up its characteristics and on the firewall rules. So again, they can change, and that's the tough part. It's like I'm going to move from one VLAN to another, or network to another, and I have to go talk to the network admin to redo all of my firewall rules. Well, that's not the case for under NSX in the virtual world. You can actually have your rules follow you, because these rules are applied at the virtual distributed switch layer versus at your default gateway layer.
Got it. So instead of having external firewalls that are based on IP addresses that you try to get from the virtual infrastructure, and you have someone else administering, here the network administrator even could come in and just define the rules, and they're just applied to VMs. So we say, like, all the VDI desktops, these are their firewall rules. This is what they can do.
Exactly.
And no matter how the IPs change or how many more we bring up or whatever, the rules stay the same.
Or if you're really trying to make it simple, you make a new cluster for VDI and you just apply it to the cluster.
Very nice.
Then you don't have to worry about anybody, say, trying to put a new VM. If somebody tries to put a VM in the VDI cluster that's actually not part of the VDI, like a rogue VM or something, they'll get the same rules regardless of whether or not they were supposed to be there.
Very nice. And so the vSphere admin doesn't have to become a network expert. They'll have the ability to do more than they did before if they want to. But you were saying they could also, with single sign-on, we can say, hey, here's the network administrator group. Now they have access to come in and administer the networking infrastructure across the software-defined data center. Is that true?
Yes. Or also an additional one is, like, if you have a security group that you know, they need to verify it, or even at an auditing level, if they just need read-only to audit what's going on. So you're able to come in and see it. We do have other products. You know, it's a little probably past the scope for this demo, but we have other products that are actually able to pull a snapshot that say, okay, I'm looking at one of these VMs. Give me every single firewall rule that applies to it. And it'll give you, it's our vRealize Network Insight. and it'll give you a listing of all the firewall rules, because even though it's virtual, the same rules still apply. You can actually create overlapping firewall rules where you have one firewall rule that's more restrictive than a later firewall rule that you put in. And those the tools like VRNI will be able to show you the overlap that you have. Have one last thing to show, and this is covers the part on setting up NSX in your infrastructure. And I went back to home to help synchronize back to network security, and then under installation. And it's installed at the cluster level. In this one, I have it on all 3 clusters. Management, if it's just doing management, is not actually sending VXLAN traffic or like we were showing earlier, you can actually exclude it and just have it as a pure management zone. It's pretty straightforward, and in my lab I have 1 controller. Normally it's done with 3 controllers so that you have quorum, whereas 2 controllers are up so that you don't have a split brain. And I'll dive in a little bit on how it actually works, because you're like, what's a controller for? That's so what we have is we have the manager, and we have what's called a controller. And then you have your standard ESX end host, and there's like a table on the host that says, hey, how do I get to one of those other machines? And it'll go, well, I don't see it in my local cache, so let me go ask the controller. And the controller will tell you, hey, this person is, or this machine is actually on host number 3, and this is where they're at. And it'll send back how to get to the other host, and that's what the controllers are doing for you. The manager is the one that you would log into if you're using like an API call, or in a sense the vSphere sends it to the manager sends it to the controllers. So it's kind of doing that behind the scenes for you, but some folks like to program them directly, so it would be against the manager in that case. Then after you have that, the host preparation is where it goes and puts the VIBs down on the host, the ESX host, so that they're able to talk over VXLAN. And that's where that happens. And I know we're back a little bit on the the network side, but the transport zone is the one where it ties it together, so it knows if we're all part of the same transport zone. That's how it's able it helps to communicate between the different areas. So you can have multiple transport zones or just have one. It just it depends on your topology. From a network perspective, it's pretty simple. We need a MTU of at least 1600. Me personally, I would move that up to say 8,000. I know 9,000 is the maximum for switches, but if you move it up to about 8,000, if any future protocols come along, you've got 1,000 extra bytes to cover anything that comes in the from us or whoever else. You've got a few bytes to save for that, for any future protocols. And that's what we're using, because your normal IP header is 1,500 bytes, and we with a VXLAN header, it's going to use about 50 extra or so on there. So 1,600 is a nice easy number to remember. And really, that's how you set it up. So if you were going to do this from scratch, it would be first draw it out on paper. Like this is going to be my virtual edge router. These are the networks that I would want. This is my uplink, which goes to the physical world. These are my logical networks that take me from my edge into my the distributed logical router, and then start laying out the what you want for your subnets. And then rather than go and start to allocate VLANs and routing protocols and all of this other stuff, you just log in here and start to transfer your Visio into the logical world, and then start attaching hosts to it, or start attaching VMs to it, and you're ready to go.
Cool, cool. Hey, Neil, we got a question here from the audience. There, Eric's asking, in the demo that you did, are the soft phones using VPN access, and are they filtered by the NSX firewall rules? If so, can you show that?
No, in this one here, I'm actually using a site-to-site VPN from my laptop, and the other one, this one that I have on here, and I'll hit it here. This one right here is a VM. I personally like to use a VMware workstation to attach to my the vSphere 6.5. I'm a big fan of tabs, so that's why it shows up this way. But I can show you. We can come over here and we'll hit the logical network. Actually, we'll go up one. We'll come in here on hosts and clusters. Okay. And I'm just opening up some of the sections so that you guys can see what's going on. This is actually part of VIO that's right there. So I'm gonna go over here. I'm just opening them up for you. There's the VMs themselves for the edge and the router. Let's see, where did I put that?
Roughly how many virtual machines make up your NSX deployment, Neil?
Oh, the actual deployment itself, this is this is for routing, this is for edge, and I have the external to this. I have the vSphere server and the NSX manager external to this on a separate set of servers. So there's 9 in this one, and it's not because it's the minimum. It's because I'm also running vSAN here. So I have
Okay.
the 3-node. I have the 3-node minimum, so that we can cover vSAN. But yes, here's the actual one that we're using for this phone call. So and here's the VXLAN that it's on. For that, like I said, the other one is I'm coming in on a different VLAN. So that's how the call is actually coming. So this one is a foreign network connecting into NSX. So it's not this VM, the Win00, just calling this VM01 as a point of reference.
Got it. Got it. And I know you said you're working here on a hands-on lab. I mean, for people who don't have, maybe a huge home lab to start deploying NSX and playing around with it, do you recommend the hands-on labs? Is that kind of the easiest way for somebody if they just want to, hey, I want to get some NSX experience today?
Oh, absolutely, because you can start over and I think it's 1703, I believe, is the NSX introduction hands-on labs, and those really give you a good foundation for how things work in the environment. This one here was to help show a little bit more on these are the things that would be like if you were going to do it in your own lab, like at your company, to show the products and work through them.
Got it. Got it. I'm going to go ahead and post a link to the VMware hands-on lab and just send that out to the audience. If you're interested in that, if you haven't tried it before, no idea what it is, check it out. And I'm going to post a link as well to the lab that Neil just referenced, the 1703. That's the specific lab on VMware NSX introduction and feature tour. Let's see if we have any other questions for the audience. From the audience here, yeah, Tim is asking, in a greenfield deployment, how do you configure the switches? Do you still use VLANs? Any advice on that?
Sure. Yeah, there's you still have a classic setup from the edge, where the edge needs to communicate into the infrastructure. That part may or may not be on a VLAN, but that's the standard vSphere uplinks for that connection. So let me see. We're a little bit. Let me just go here. Networking. So this is the one we're using for the uplinks.
Okay, and for everybody out there in the audience, I know we're running a little long on time, so I've got one more question after this one for you, Neil. And then I know some folks might be waiting to find out who wins the gift card and then get back to work.
yeah. Okay, then I'll speed it up a little bit. You normally have like a couple. You'll have one for VXLAN, and then you'll have, and that's so that it's on a separate network. Then you still have your classic ones for your management and that stuff. But after you have that edge gateway set up, everything else is virtual. So typically it's about 4 VLANs, and it's not for NSX. That's for your vMotion, your the standard stuff that you're using. So 1 or 2 extra VLANs to get the infrastructure set up, and then the 1600 byte MTU, or at least 1600 byte MTU, so that you can have the extra header and IGMP snooping turned on. And you can need that. It's just to help with the optimization of the network, and a lot of that stuff is already turned on by default these days.
Got it. Quick question here from Tim. He's asking, everything we saw on the screen, is that all covered by the NSX license, or were there more licenses applied than just NSX? Like, what VMware products did you show here?
Yeah, I was very careful to stay only on NSX. That's why we didn't go into like Network Insight or Log Insight or any of the other ones. No, this is all what we were seeing so far. I touched on it, but I didn't go into it on the VMware Integrated OpenStack because that's a separate product. I was just showing that from the NSX perspective. But yes, this is all NSX.
Okay, cool. And then a follow-up question here from Eric.
But just to touch on that, customers, if you already have VMware investments, whether it's Earwatch, Horizon, vSphere, these, the NSX integration work with all those existing investments. Just FYI.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Chris. And then Eric is also asking here about the voice VXLAN tunnel. Is that a site-to-site? Is that tunneled into a site-to-site NSX edge VPN?
No, not in this case. This is the edge. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that's actually quite a long answer. But in this case, no, it's purely VXLAN to VXLAN at a layer 2 level. That starts to get into other solutions to be able to have an NSX edge to stretch or have your layer 2 available at another site for that.
Okay, cool. Well, I think we are just about out of time. Anything further you want to add, Neil?
Oh no, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a really cool demo. We could do this the rest of the afternoon. I have so many questions for you. So maybe we'll have to do this again sometime. But it's been a lot of fun. And with that, let me go ahead and take back control here. And I will announce the winner of our gift card. And the winner of the Amazon $500 gift card is Deborah Wong. Congratulations, Deborah. Well, we will reach out to you via email to send out your gift card. And for more information on NSX, of course, VMware's website, vmware.com/products/NSX. There's a ton of information on there, introduction to NSX, data sheets, blogs, case studies. And then, of course, I posted the link to the hands-on labs as well if you want to go check those out and start using NSX today, get a little bit of hands-on experience. Thanks so much, Chris, and thanks so much, Neil, for being on the event today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a bunch.
Awesome, and thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for being on the DemoCast. Look for more DemoCast events coming out in the future. Have a great day. Bye-bye.